All right. I just did the podcast ping and invited the bot.
Excellent.
So we oh. I was saying we can get started.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Villainviver podcast. I'm Elk, and along with me, we have...
My name is Carlos Tadeu. Yep.
And I'm Gabriel.
All right, and today we're going to be talking over the recent preseason speed for Season 5 of Villainviver, hosted right here in the Villainviver server. If you have any questions for us along the way, feel free to ask them directly in Spectator Chat or Trusted Spectator Chat. Today, Gabriel and I brought Carlos along because Carlos, along with Emma, were the main hosts of this speed season, and we'd love to hear the inside perspective of the planning, the game, and see it all through the eyes of our hosts. Unfortunately, Emma was not able to join us today. But Carlos, why don't you start us off by telling us about some of the goals that you had in mind when designing the way that this speed would go, and what some of your overall objectives were when you were planning this.
So when I suggested, which is kind of funny that when I suggested the theme for the speed season, I gave like, oh, let's do Once Upon a Time because I'm actually a big fan of the show, and when it comes to villains, that's my go-to because the show has some amazing villains and some not really good villains, but we all we only think of the good ones. I didn't realize that it actually fit the theme for the main season, which is Shrek, because both are fairy tales. So that was kind of funny. Then my main goal was, or at least when I pitched, that we at least had to have each season like represented the main villains of each part, because from season 3 onwards they would separate in two parts each season, and each with a main villain. So I think we managed to do that. Minus one that me and Emma both agreed that we don't like, that it was the King Arthur. Him and all the whole thing about the sword and the stone, and like the King Arthur and the uh, round table thing. It was so wasted on the show, sadly. Same with Merida, she was there. Um, so we just focused on the other ones for that part. But the rest were there. Even the unlikable Isaac that ended up doing the last challenge. But that was it. That was my primary goal, to have at first the main villains being represented, and then to think what challenges it would suit them. Oh yeah, and Goffo wasn't there. We didn't manage to think of one for her. She was the last villain. So in that sense, the Once Upon a Time fans that thought that it should have ended on season 6, well, they got their wish kinda on with the speed season.
Well, that's a good place for one more little quick question while we're still on the flavor, before we dive into the specific events of the speed. If you had to pick one most iconic villain from the entire run of Once Upon a Time, who's your number one? Who's at the top of the mountain?
It is so hard because I love both Rompo and Regina. They're like they're so amazing, but like if I had to pick one, because they are the ones that make the show for me. Just
Oh, well,
because I met her in real life, so I'm going to have a little bit of bias. I'm going to say Regina. I met Rolanda Parrilla in real life.
so we'll say Regina, closely followed by Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, the first announcement of the season was, of course, the announcement of the Idol Shards twist, where contestants would have to get a total of 5 shards, starting with 1 and getting them from others, either fire token style after a vote out or just through social negotiation. And almost the second this was announced, we had some of our contestants begin asking for shards, and some of our contestants quickly giving away their shards as though they were made of hot metal that they wanted to get out of their hands as fast as possible. How do you think the existence of the shard system for finding and possessing idols shaped the course of the season?
I mean, we had someone that was eliminated for asking too much for shards. We had someone that got eliminated even though they had the poor idol formed. So I think the shards. Oh, we had someone with 2 idols right up to the end that was never used. So like, I think the shard system was really good. And it shaped the game really well. We had some really good twists with it.
Yeah, I think it definitely added an extra element to the social gaming of the season for people to negotiate over, and in some cases, completely blow up their own games over negotiating over. But that brings us to our first round, the final 18. In this round, we have the now infamous Hangman Challenge, where one tribe almost immediately figured out Dunbroach in what seemed, at least from the perspective of a non-viewer of the show, a shockingly fast solve. But due to the structure of the challenge, had to wait a while to actually be able to guess that. Were you surprised at how quickly one of the tribes was able to identify Dunbroach as the first answer?
Was really surprised because it's not like Dunbroach is not just the show; it's actually the name of the kingdom from Brave. So you don't technically need to watch the show to know the name. But I was really surprised. They guessed it. They guessed the letter. They got the letter, and someone's like, "Okay, Dunbroach." I was like, "What?" They guessed with 1 letter on the board, but then because of the rules and when if we do Hangman later in the future, though probably not going to be for speed season, that's for sure. We need to change that rule is that they could only guess after half the word was uh, revealed, and that sadly meant that this tribe got robbed. They knew the letter from they knew the word from since the first round, and they had to start throwing. But then, because of that, another tribe got the word in the end. But it didn't matter that much because that tribe still, the tribe that guessed the word first round, still won immunity. But it still feels like they were robbed. So we did change in the second round that they could guess anytime. And when they heard they could guess anytime, they started guessing words instead of guessing letters. And that was painful.
You could say that as soon as they knew that they could guess any time, they did in fact start guessing any and every time. But with that, the Rumpelstiltskin tribe ends up losing that first challenge, and that started a little bit of a trend. Rumpelstiltskin did not have the best of day, as we're about to see, but that first tribal ends up being the blank vote, which was relatively clean. And then we go to the second episode where we have the song completion. Is there anything that stands out to you about that entire episode, either the song completion challenge itself or the eventual loss of the Rumpelstiltskin tribe yet again and the elimination of Vinyl? Is there anything from that episode that stands out to you?
It was me jumping the gun and forgetting to to ping the tribes. at the start of the challenge, as they quickly rushed into the challenge room. Um, there was that. I think there was one thing that was really stand out was when the start of the Megan or thing that they would complain about the speed and everything because their internet connection.
Yeah, the internet speed, those song lyrics, some of the contestants were extremely fast at getting those lyrics, much faster than I would have expected. And it became a little bit of a speed race at times, but overall, I think it was a pretty fun challenge, even if, like, Rumpelstiltskin, again, continued their little downward spiral, we'll call it. So then we get to the third episode. And the third episode here, we have the Who's That Animal challenge, where they had to quickly identify the shadows of various animals and figure out like what animal it was, which, as Megan would point out, was yet another like quick naming challenge, and as it would turn out, yet another loss for Megan's Rumpelstiltskin tribe, with Ari being voted out there. Do you think that it worked well having the two? Do you think that it was a problem rather to have the two quick naming challenges back to back? Or do you think that that's just sometimes how things go in speeds, and while it was unfortunate for Megan, that's just how it played out?
I think because of how speed works, that's unfortunately how we would have gone. That's just unfortunate. There was nothing we could do, especially after Hangman took so long to go through. Having these quick fire challenges back to back at least can put us at a better pacing for the speed season. And although complaining gets a bit annoying sometimes, I don't condone them. Because especially because Discord was having so much trouble that day. Uh, we had we even call it. Um, we started late because of that as well. And even now, I'm watching videos. I'm like, they recorded that on Saturday, didn't they? They are having Discord troubles.
Yeah, there have been like a couple of little Discord hiccups, especially on the day of the speed. So I definitely think that played a role in Megan's frustration. And though, along with that, like Rumpelstiltskin tribe as a whole ended up being by far the least active of the three tribes. So I think that tribe would have been a little frustrated, even if it weren't for the Discord lag issues as well.
Yeah, I complete. Sadly, she also didn't pick, like you said, she didn't get a very active tribe. That didn't help as well. I think only her and two other people were actively playing.
So then we get the shelter building. I think the tribe seemed to have a lot of fun with the shelter building, even if it was a very rushed challenge.
Yeah,
And that was the episode, if I remember correctly, that's the episode where Regina goes out from the Regina tribe, right?
check. Yeah, Regina tribe. Regina voted out. Also, the first Rumpelstiltskin win. That was the one that we were like, yeah, we like we definitely want Rumpelstiltskin. They were the most creative ones. They made it out from scratch. It was a nice drawing with so much references to the show. But then at the end, we chose. Why did we choose the evil fairy over Regina again?
Because
Regina
Regina was just
the
a copy and pasted image from the internet with gay flags on it.
Yeah.
It was nothing.
Even though Evil Fairy just like did paint with like the wear and the line tools and everything, and even they have some copied images, it wasn't everything copied.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, it was like they actually took the images and combined them into a little bit more of a collage, whereas the Regina tribe just basically like took an existing image and like tried to do some very bare bones decoration on it. So I understand how that result ended up happening. And then
Also,
we get
the Regina, just
Right.
as last note, also the Regina tribe, like I don't remember if we had in other challenges so far. I think this was the first one. We had a time extension because Regina tribe kept not doing the challenge. They kept posting images on their chat, and no one was doing anything. No one was stepping up to actually do the shelter. They just had a lot of images on their chat with nothing.
And then we go to the swap and also to one of the biggest twists of the season. So we have the new tribes, the Dark Swan and the Hook tribe, and we do the double joint tribal council, which is quite a mouthful. But effectively, we had an immunity challenge where one person from each tribe would be immune. Then the two tribes all joined together almost like a temporary merge and sent two consecutive votes at the same time. And two people would be voted out back to back with no chance to plot, scheme, plan in between. And so when this happened, we end up getting first we have the Anubis vote, immediately followed by the Minerva vote, like back to back. Is there anything in particular about who was voted out there you want to talk about before we dig into the twist itself?
Minerva, they wanted to be voted out, so there wasn't much to talk about the vote. Anubis, I don't was Anubis the one that had the 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 idol and didn't play, and we were like, no, no, play, play, play.
Yeah, that
Was it
was the one.
Anubis?
That was
Yeah.
Anubis, yeah, who had an idol, and a lot of the hosts watching the season are like waiting to see is Anubis about to play this idol, is Anubis about to play this idol, but no, Anubis did not in fact play that idol. Around this time in the season, I believe is when that happened, if not before this, there was a particularly funny moment when Baz tries to tell his tribe mates that he's never even played a speed before, while his tribe mates realize that he in fact has the season 3 preseason speed winner role as one of his roles on the server. And basically gets caught like telling his tribe that he's never played a speed before when he has not only played but won a speed in this very server like 6 months ago.
Which is kind of funny considering the placement, but we'll get to that later. Uh, about the challenge itself, I don't know what people were thinking when they decided to, oh, let's grab the biggest paintbrush size to do the maze, because that would lead to people like going through the walls and like really hard to actually see if they were doing the correct path. So we had a few people that Snowy, I think, was the one that did, and Live for the ones that got the immunity on that challenge. Because looking, I really don't know what he was or what they were thinking when they like with this green thick line. But yeah, this was a fun challenge to do. Definitely fast, so we could fit the speed, and it was a nice one to do for the double joint tribe. Since two people are going to get immunity, so something fast for that can be done as a single immunity or like individual immunity.
Do you think, as a whole, the double joint tribal twist worked out well?
I mean, we didn't. Did we have trouble besides the amount of votes we had to count?
Oh, I don't necessarily mean in terms of trouble. I mean, do you think it had like an interesting impact in the game? Do you think it, shook up the way people were playing? Like in terms of creating fun for the players and the spectators, do you think it succeeded?
Did we? Did we? No, I think we did announce that. Not we announced, but like Anubis announced he had a a an idol. So like, did that announcing that influence something?
I would
Like the
imagine that someone announcing they
charts?
have an idol probably does in fact cause some people to vote for them some portion of the time.
No,
You
no,
know,
but
they
he announced after. Like he got it, they got eliminated, and they were like, "Fuck! I had an idol up my ass." He said that in the tribal chat after the elimination.
Yeah, that was again one of the big dramatic moments. Anubis getting voted out there with the idol, and then, as we said, the Minerva who asked to be voted out at that point. Minerva had also been playing like reasonably well right up until the point where they asked to be voted out. But unfortunately, sometimes things happen, which goes on to be the case as well for Average, who had to leave the competition during the following round. And then we get to the riddles. In the riddles, we have Freeze sitting out as the Hook tribe goes on to win the riddles challenge, sending Dark Swan to tribal. And that's where Looking is going to be voted out of the game. And from the perspective of not being inside the Alliance chats, that was a pretty surprising vote. I remember thinking that Looking looked like they might have been in a decent position in the game, at least from
Yeah,
the outside looking in. Um, was there
outside
anything
looking
notable
in.
about the way the Looking vote came together from inside the Alliance chats?
Dude, you did a point you didn't even notice. You said outside looking in.
Oh, that's true.
Um, man, I actually don't barely remember now the looking situation, the alliance. But I know I have something to talk about the challenge itself. Like it was hard to find riddles because at first me and Emma were like, oh, maybe we can find like Alice in the Wonderland riddles, and they gave me a link to a website, but mostly the website was like questions about the movie or like questions about the behind the scenes of the movie. I'm like, this is not riddle. This isn't a riddle. That's trivia question. So I decided to go look on Google for Disney, maybe Disney riddles, and then I get go. His father died. Who is he? I'm like that. First, lions are not king of the jungle, and two, Simba lives on a savannah. And then the next riddle also was like he's a fierce creature. He breathes fire, and his movie is about how to train them. Like Toothless, how to train your dragon is DreamWorks. So like I was getting it was so hard to actually find good riddles. So at the end, there was no thematic to them. I just like, oh, this is a good riddle, so I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, in the end, it ended up not being like as thematic, and just ended up having to focus on like quality of riddles and making sure they were actually going to be interesting riddles to solve, rather than like being Disney related. But in a way, I think that still worked out pretty well and made it like more fun than if we had tried to force the theme a little too hard. With that, we get to the merge, and that's where we have the gambling challenge. Gambling challenge that those of you who were here for Villain Viver Season 3 will probably remember from the final swap right before the merge, which was played at Final 12, which was the challenge where Danush was voted out in that season. Here in the speed, instead of playing it for tribal immunity, we played it for individual immunity, where Megan had an excellent run, ending with 37 coins, which is like definitely above expectation, even with like perfect strategy, and was a very lucky, but a result that came from like playing the odds in a way that led to winning immunity. And it feels kind of like vindication for Megan, who was on the wrong side of the luck so much with the Rumpelstiltskin tribe, with the internet lag. Now Megan is the one getting the good luck here in the gambling challenge and winning the first immunity of the merge.
Yeah, after the three tribes became two, Megan stepped up on the game, especially with more active tribes. Uh, and she but they started like complaining less. I don't remember actually seeing after the merging, the two merges, uh, them complaining anymore. I could have just missed, but I think with the other challenges was more prevalent.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So then we get to the first tribal of the merge, and that vote is going to go down between Star and Really. And that was the vote where Star is voted out. Did Star have an idol at that point?
Yeah, that's because Star used it at that tribal and idled themselves out.
Wait, this is the final 12, right?
Let me check. Probably still on the speed chat. The bid messages. This was final 10.
This was final 10, okay. And so, yeah, this is that one there. And then we go to the... So that's where Star ends up going out of the game as our first juror. And we'll see where things go from there. And so then after that, we have the Where's Waldo challenge, where Waldo has been, repurposed into being the Ruby Slippers.
Wait, can we back up? Was I wrong? Was that not where Star idled themselves out?
I'm trying to find the specific tribal there. I think idle play is the one who idles themselves out, not Star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is Star getting voted out first, and then the following tribal is the one where we're going to have the big showdown between Freeze and Scorch. So coming off the back of the Star vote out, Freeze and Scorch just completely go at each other in tribal. This is probably the most iconic moment of the season. If you're putting together the 30-second video montage of the season, this is the moment that you start with. The big showdown between Freeze and Scorch coming out of the Star Tribal. Any thoughts on the showdown between Freeze and Scorch?
I
I'm not
didn't
gonna
really.
lie, I actually didn't see the showdown. I was hoping I could find it.
So this is going to be in the Underbrook chat, is where this all goes down, right after they come back from the tribal. Where Freeze and Scorch just get into a huge argument over the results of the last tribal. things get very heated and very chilly, depending on which side of the scorch freeze argument we're talking about. But on the whole, it ends up being like easily the biggest fight of the season and basically ensures that the next vote is going to be between freeze and scorch. Like you're either on one side or you're on the other. The line in the sand is drawn, and one of you is going to have to go.
I mean, whenever there's drama in an org, like it always leads to like one or the other is about to be voted out next, you know?
So
It's like people don't like the tension.
Yeah. So then we get to a point where Really is going to be about to play an idol, and then we get so Freeze and Scorch are going to go up against each other here, but idols are going to be played on both Freeze and Scorch, one of which was played by Really, and Really goes out with the only vote cast at the final 9, or rather the only vote counted, because Really had played the idol on Scorch, and Snowy played the idol on Freeze, which led to every single vote except for one being cancelled, and Really effectively idling themselves out of the game.
Yeah, I remember that one. I remember everyone being like the reaction to everyone.
But
Could only seeing the DNC over and over.
Oh yeah. That shit was
Yeah.
intense.
Everyone was waiting to see, like, definitely it seemed like the prevailing mood in tribe chat at the time this is going down is that like it was going to be an all votes canceled situation. But there ended up being one vote. I believe it was Megan's vote that sent Really out of the game, if I remember correctly. It was the only vote that actually counted in that tribal.
Sierra's vote.
Sierra's vote, thank you. Yeah, Sierra's vote for Really was the only vote that counted in that tribal. So then we get to the final 8, and at this point, the Scorch versus Freeze showdown has reached its boiling point, and they are, in fact, for the second tribal in a row, leading the guns fully trained on each other, and one of the two is going to go out, and the one of the two who goes out here is Scorch. Scorch goes out by a vote of 6-2, and Freeze is going to survive for at least a while longer in this game. But at that point in time, like, Scorch has probably been the biggest personality, especially in the early part of the merge in the whole season. And so there's a lot more air and space in the room at this point in time now that Scorch is out of the game.
Yeah, can we talk about Scorch and how fucking delusional he was the entire game? This man thought he was in charge of everything. He said, what did he say? He said something about his social game was like the best
one of the season.
Yeah, the best of the season. And meanwhile, everyone was like, yeah, I can't wait to get Scorch out. Like, that was so funny. Like, he reminds me of me. Like, my reads are that bad. And this is Scorch's first ever like org thing ever. Like org related thing. He like found he like was looking for he was like looking for a server to talk about the last Survivor episode and like found that there was a speed going on and like did it. So it's just really interesting that he made it as far as he did.
So I have the exact quote here. They said, "But honestly, who needs immunity when you have the best social game out here?" It was right after the gambling game.
And that's one of the things, right? Like when you get these super fans who are completely new to the world of orgs, they come in like guns blazing, basically trying to be like the complete and total reincarnation of the best of like Kim, Rob, and Sandra all rolled into one package. and they come into the season and they think they're dominating, and then all of a sudden, like, the rug gets pulled out from under them and they never see it coming.
To be honest, I think it's because he was like, "Oh, I am in two different alliances, so I'm good." And then both alliances turned on them. It turned on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen some amount of the time, especially when you're playing as out in front of a game. Like when you're playing that, big alliance leader game, even if you're successfully playing the middle for a while, like no one wants to let you sit in front of the jury at the end having played like that. And at some point the wheels come off the bus. And that brings us to the final 7. At the final 7, we have my personal favorite challenge of the season, which is the Honey Pots Trivia Challenge, which basically, for those who did not watch the season, played out like a coconut chop challenge where each contestant had 3 honey pots in front of them. We had 30-second trivia questions where anyone who could correctly answer those trivia questions got to smash one of the pots of their competitors, and the last person with a honey pot remaining would win the challenge. Is there anything about this challenge that you'd be interested in doing differently if you did it again, or do you think it played out exactly as you'd want it to, or somewhere in between?
Next time, read Google properly, because for those who don't missed, I actually did the oopsie, and one of the questions was nullified because we asked who's the name of the good witch of the north, but for some reason, maybe I actually the Google autocorrect to south, and then I saw Glinda, and I was like, oh, I know this name, I'll put it, but it was Locasta. So we ended up nullifying the question because of this oopsie. That would be the only thing that I would change, because this was really fun. I liked coming up with the questions. I liked giving the sequels some love. We had like 102 Dalmatians question from there. Um, we had some tricky questions. My friends know that when I'm asking questions and whatnot, I like to throw tricky questions, like we had with the. I even said, how many people are going to answer? Uh, what's the jingle hopper for the pipe? And we had a few people saying jingle hopper. That was fun. But yeah, the only thing I would change is just pay more attention to what I'm typing and what I'm reading on Google.
One thing that I'd be curious to see, I don't think it would have made a huge difference here in this case because Snowy ran away with it basically no matter what. Like Snowy was by far the most successful here and was very well positioned socially to not get pots smashed. One thing I'd be interested to see in a future version of this challenge is to run it like a protected chop, where you can't get one of you if you answered the question correctly. So you can only break from the people who didn't get the question correctly. Just that someone who's not in a majority alliance, a better than an immunity there.
Mhm.
And I think that would be an interesting wrinkle to try putting onto a challenge like this. But with or without that wrinkle, I think.
I
So
think
that brings us to the.
for a
Oh, go ahead.
for a speed season, it works without the protection, because with the protection it would take a longer time for it, and I don't know if we would have enough questions for it. But if we do put this sort of challenge on the main season, then we can do that.
And then this comes down to, I believe that was a 4-3 vote between Megan and Tara. who are two of the biggest characters of the season, especially with Scorch having gone out of the game. It's now Tara versus Megan, and by the vote of 4-3, Megan goes out of the game.
Yeah, it was a big hit, definitely, but like it was two big actual characters, as you said, on the season, and I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. The season changed heavily after that, but it doesn't make the win quotes less smaller for Tara for surviving that, but also doesn't make Megan less of a person for not. I mean, they got the jury. That's still pretty big.
Yeah. And then we basically have an incredibly strong finish to the season over these last couple of episodes. So at this point in the game, we're down to the final 6. We have Life, we have Snowy, we have Freeze, we have Sierra, we have Tara, and we have Baz are the final 6 remaining in the game. And if you say it's not how the season starts, it's how it finishes, then my goodness, this was an incredible season. Because we get to that final 6 episode, we have the Hot Potato Challenge, which ends up being one of the wildest challenges that I've ever seen. And this was one that I remember you were in particular very excited to be running. So why don't we
Yes.
delve into the hot potato a little bit before we go to one of the wildest tribals you will ever see?
So basically, the wild potato was actually in one of the orgs that I actually came from. Like I saw this server from that org, which Elk was also part of. Um, there was the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon survival org, and basically I saw this challenge being run, and I was like, "My God, this is so much fun! It's so chaotic." Um, for you guys to have an idea, like I was laughing so much in other challenges that I was like, okay, you guys are silent and I'm laughing so much, I'm going to mute myself so it's not awkward. But then in this hot potato challenge, I couldn't be looking at the screen so it's not biased or like cheating for when I go to stop. And the host chat was basically just laughter. It was like so much laughter with how the challenge was ongoing. Um, I mentioned before, but I'll mention here on the podcast that the only thing that I would change, it's minor, but it makes a difference, is that the challenge stops, or like the round stops when I say stop. But because Discord shows, oh, this person is typing, people can play their game, being like, oh, I'm going to hold on to the hot potato until they start typing and time it. So I eliminate someone. Um, I would only change is that I say go, and then right away I write stop, but I don't send it. That so people can't play their game around me starting to type. But overall, it was really fun game. I think I did it justice for how it was played on the other org, and it's shown one that I think it can be brought back for other seasons. Um, it doesn't even need to be speed. It can be done on the main one too. It's an easy one to set up. So that's basically it.
Yeah, that's a challenge that ended up being a lot of fun for everyone involved. Revealed a little bit of social dynamics as well. Was fun for the hosts, for the players, for the spectators. It was generally like an extremely wild and crazy challenge, and one that I think would be very fun to see again, whether as a reward challenge in the regular season or any of 100 other places really, or even as like a tribe game night or something, like for some activity maybe with a reward for tribes to do for individual reward. I could see it being used a lot of different places and just being an absolute blast for everyone involved playing that hot potato challenge. But at this point in the game, we've had Scorch and then Megan leave. And if there was any vacuum in extreme confidence, well, nature abhors that vacuum because Mr. Freeze stepped up to fill the vacuum of extremely over-the-top self-confidence. As we get to this final 6 vote, Mr. Freeze makes the incredible decision of, okay, this vote, we are currently going to win the vote 4-2. And so instead of voting for the person who I believe to be going out, I am going to intentionally not submit a vote and self-vote for jury management. However, in the process of doing so, the only jury management Mr. Freeze did was managing himself directly onto the jury 3-2-1.
I still remember that. It was hilarious that he self-voted out of the game. It's just incredible.
It was one of the most shocking moments I've ever seen in an org. The confidence to just intentionally self-vote, thinking you're doing it for jury management, and get voted out 3-2-1 when it would have been 2-2-2, and you probably would have won the revote if you had just stuck to the plan. Truly an all-time speed moment within this server, one that people will talk about for a long time. Remember when Mr. Freeze intentionally self-voted himself out of the game 3-2-1?
That was so iconic.
Yeah.
He was so confident in that.
It was just, that was completely ridiculous. So we get to the next challenge, the final 5. Originally, we intended for the final 5 to use the bot and play a friendly round of Texas Hold'em, but instead of doing that, because several of our players didn't know how to play Texas Hold'em previously, and because the Green Tea Challenge had been scrapped earlier in the season, we decided to go ahead and play Green Tea at that point in time. And
Unintentionally was kind of fitting because Poker would be Cora, which is Regina's mother. But since people didn't know how to play poker, we played Regina instead. So, like, we didn't do the mother, we did the daughter.
exactly. So then we get to the second consecutive iconic vote. The vote is going down between Sierra and Tara, and Tara's closest ally is Snowy. Snowy has the last idol left in the game. There are no more idols, but this is the last round to play it. And the votes have been cast. The vote is going to be 3-2. Tara is going to get 3 votes. Sierra is going to get 2. And Snowy is deciding whether or not to play his idol. And basically, if Snowy correctly realizes that the 3 votes are on Tara, Snowy will vote Sierra out of the game with the idol. If Snowy does not realize this and idles himself, then his number 1 ally, Tara, will be sent home. And unfortunately for Tara, Snowy plays the idol on himself, Tara gets 3 votes, and Tara is eliminated from the game.
Yeah,
I think,
another big elimination. I think honestly, it's not trying to downgrade some the person. I think they deserve it. I mean, they got to top 3, but we're going to talk about that later. But between Sierra and Tara, I think Tara deserved more. I think
yeah,
that not Snowy not giving him his ally really was big. I mean, it was for them, like it helped out in the end. But I mean, he still. I mean, he wasn't the winner, but like I think it would be a much harder competition if Tara was there.
yeah, I think that's completely fair. Then we get to the final 4 challenge, which is the trivia challenge. Just final thoughts on Tara before I move on. Just that, yeah, Tara was like absolutely one of the biggest threats in the game. Like, played an incredible game, and when you're getting voted out at Final Five because you've played a good game, like that's absolutely to your credit rather than anything else. We get to the final immunity where Life is going to effectively win walking away. Life dominates the trivia challenge there at the end, which means that the vote is going to go between Sierra and Snowy, and Snowy, to much to the disappointment of at least some of the fans, gets voted out 3-1 right in that fallen angel spot. Like, Snowy, Tara, and Freeze, really, the last 3 players voted out of the game, all had great chances to win the game, all played very strong games, even if, Freeze had his a very large hand in his own undoing, to say the least. But all 3 of them had great chances to win the game if they made it to the end, and that's exactly why they didn't make the end. Was Snowy's elimination a huge shock?
No.
Honestly, no.
He was such a threat.
Yeah. At some points, it felt like it was Snowy's game to lose, that there was always going to be a way for Snowy to make it, but at the same time, Snowy was such a threat that he probably always had to win that last challenge. And when Life won, like, the writing was on the wall for Snowy. I agree. So then we get to our final 3, and that's going to be between Sierra, Life, and Baz. Any notable things from Final Tribal that we want to touch on?
You said Baz, Sierra, and Snowy?
Sorry. Baz,
Why is it
Sierra, and
like
Life.
Oh. I mean, I think it was obvious that Baz was going to win. Well, I mean, I thought that it could have been between Baz and Life, because Life played more of like a physical game and Baz played more of like a social game.
yeah?
But
Yeah,
Baz
I
gave
think
a better Final Tribal.
Yeah, I think that on the whole, Life's FTC was not the strongest. I think Baz is probably the favorite, even if Life plays stronger in the FTC. But I think that Baz did what he needed to do to secure the win, and Life didn't do what he needed to do to make it close.
Also,
And
one
so,
thing to notice about like the FTC is Sierra's addressing to the jury. If I can put it out here, it was speeches and questioning. It was odd to say the least. Do you guys remember? I think we commented on the uh, Sierra starts saying, first and foremost, I would like to say that I did not intend on making this far.
yeah, I mean, I think Sierra is relatively new to Org World, right?
Yeah, she's only played one before.
Yeah.
And yet, Sierra played really well overall. Like, even if she wasn't getting votes at the end, I think she played, like, she had a hand in the game. And I think she really did, like, enough for us to see, like, to look forward to seeing what else Sierra has to offer. Like, there were definitely enough shines to Sierra's game that I would anticipate seeing Sierra continue to grow into being a very strong org player.
Also, she took some shots at the jury. She's like, she said, but Snowy is worse in comps and therefore had to stay for fourth. I mean, Gabriel invited her and she like had a relationship with Snowy before. How does she know that Snowy is worse in competition or chap or comps here is challenges?
Yeah, comps just meaning challenges.
Okay, then kind of makes sense.
Um, But then, yeah, it was incredible to see that Baz would go on to win this season, especially having previously won the season 3 speed. But at the same time, I think Baz very much earned this win. Just was socially dominant throughout the season. Was never in a spot to be going home, and on the whole, just played a fantastic game.
Yeah, Baz was definitely a worthy winner.
Is there any one moment or decision that we can highlight for Baz that really drives home what made Baz's game as good as it was?
I mean, not one moment. It's just the fact that he managed to not be seen as a threat while being in all these alliances and being so social and not having his name written down except for, was it written down? No, he didn't get any votes.
I don't think Baz was ever voted against at any point in the entire season.
And it's not because he was a GOAT.
No, exactly. It's almost a little bit of the Michelle problem, to make an analogy to the show, where
not you
it's such a
spoiling the
great
season that I'm watching.
It's such a strong social game that's hard to show, but that on the whole is a very productive game, a strong game, a game that will always put you in contention deep into the game, even if it doesn't have individual flashy moments to show. All right. Any final thoughts about our speed season, the official preseason speed for season 5 of Villain Viver?
I got nothing.
Neither do I.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we were able to come together today and talk through our preseason speed for season 5 of Villain Viver. I don't see any questions from our audience today. So we'll be heading to wrap the show up pretty shortly. If you have any last second questions, please get them in. If you are listening to this in real time, or if the podcast goes up to the next day or so, this is your last chance to apply for Villain Viver Season 5, which is themed after the first Shrek movie. Other than that, it's been great getting the chance to talk with all of you today. Thank you so much for joining us, Carlos. I hope that we'll see you around, but it was wonderful to hear your perspective from the inside of having planned this speed. The next time we see you, it will probably
Thank you for
be
having me.
our cast reveal podcast for season 5, where we'll have our reactions to those 18 contestants who are chosen to play on season 5. So until next time, this is Elk signing off, along with
Gabriel.
Stadil.
Oh shit! Sorry.
No, it's okay.
You can go.
Carlos Stadil.
And Gabriel.
All right, we'll see you all next week with our cast reveal. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.